Ever since the release of Justice League back in November of 2017, there has been a fan outcry for the Zack Snyder Cut to be released. Part of this is from the fact that Zack Snyder reportedly had a rough cut of the film when he left the project to Joss Whedon. My goal with this will be to break down what happened and if a Zack Snyder Cut for Justice League does or even can exist. I knew of the demand of the Snyder Cut of Justice League for a long time, but until I joined a DC group on Facebook, I had no idea how prevalent it is. When someone posted about it, I simply replied with what I knew about it at the time. I was bombarded by comments that were quick to tell me I was wrong and led to this brief video clip of Zack Snyder.
I mean, all I'll tell you is that, you know, it's done. You have fun.
I am hardly an expert on everything, so I thought I would dive into this rabbit hole of the Snyder Cut and see if I'm wrong about it. It'd be interesting if such a thing actually did exist after all. To lay my cards out on the table, everything I've heard up to this point says that does not exist. But I do not want to start from my conclusion. I want to approach this from a clean slate and see what I can come up with. This video tells what I could find. It is well known that Warner Brothers decided to make a DC cinematic universe with Man of Steel. Their original plan was to start with Green Lantern, but that went awry quickly. Man of Steel would be their second attempt despite the nebulous reviews of that movie, which were much better than what Green Lantern got. So Zack Snyder would be given 2 more movies, essentially making a trilogy. It would be Man of Steel, followed by Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, followed by Justice League. Justice League would even be split up into 2 movies with 2 release dates. But after the failure of franchises like Divergent to pull off a 2-part movie, and Batman v Superman's critical failure, Justice League was scaled down to 1 movie. In March of 2017, one of the greatest tragedies that could ever happen to a human being happened to Zack Snyder. His 20-year-old daughter died. The movie went on a 2-week hiatus to allow Zack and Deborah Snyder time to mourn. Deborah is a producer on Justice League. The story then hit that the Snyders left the movie. Joss Whedon, who had been brought on to script doctor the project, was assigned to finish the movie. It perhaps gets more tragic when it was revealed that the Snyders had originally planned to throw themselves into their work, but Warner Brothers took the opportunity to fire them after the bad reception of Batman v Superman. This is where all reports of the Zack Snyder Cut end. Reportedly, he had shot the entire movie and had a rough cut put together. But a rough cut is also not a watchable movie. A rough cut has outtakes, no special effects, no music, no CGI, pretty much nothing that isn't literally present in front of the camera on the day of shooting. However, many believe a complete cut does exist. And with the video of Zack Snyder himself probably saying it exists, it seems like it could be a good opportunity to see what there could be. Before I could even seriously begin looking into this, for a brief few minutes, Zack Snyder linked on Twitter the first 5 minutes of his cut of the movie. He posted it and deleted it within 15 minutes. Almost no one noticed, but I managed to get this video downloaded, so now I can present to you exclusively the first 5 minutes of Justice League, the Zack Snyder Cut.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you.
Seriously, my actual first step was to put out a tweet asking what fans knew of this and seeing what leads they could provide. Some were videos, including the above from Snyder himself, and a piece from Jason Momoa from MTV.
Some fans are obsessed with the so-called Snyder Cut of Justice League, like an alternate cut.
Yeah.
Are you, I mean...
I'm obsessed with it too.
Are you?
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Like, do you want to see a different version eventually at some point, or is there a different
I
version?
mean, that's this one thing that sucks with our business where you just can't speak your mind, but yeah.
Okay.
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
Some of which are tweets. One is from Tom Hulkenborg, aka JunkieXL, who sent out this tweet that indicates the score may be complete, but only linking come together. The other person who tweets on this is Jay Olivia. He's best known for his work with DC animated films, and is one of the most significant people retweet when talk of Snyder comes up. It's also an unverified account. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean anything. My Twitter account is unverified, but it does cast some doubt. So we have a verified account saying the score is possibly completed, though it could be being misread. Perhaps he simply means this version of Come Together was done, which was tagged in the tweet. And an unverified account saying that very much exists, or at least close enough to being done. So the first step is to attempt to reach out to these people. First, I'll attempt to DM Tom Hulkenborg, which doesn't work, of course. So next, I follow his Twitter to his YouTube channel, seeing if I can contact contact him there. Naturally, he doesn't list his email there. Next, I follow the links to his Facebook page, and there I find a message option. So I send him a message. Hello, I'm doing research into the Zack Snyder Cut of Justice League for the YouTube channel Organized Chaos. I am trying to figure out if the cut exists and how far long it is. A tweet was brought to my attention that you sent indicating the score may be complete. Now I was wondering if that was perhaps misinterpreted, or if the score for a Zack Snyder Cut of Justice League truly does exist. Any information you could provide would be welcome. Next step, try to contact Jay Olivia and see if he truly is who he says, and if he can provide any real evidence behind his say-so. I cannot DM him, and his account doesn't list any links. So instead, I simply tag him in a tweet and see what happens. I am doing a story about the Zack Snyder Cut of Justice League, and am looking for any evidence of its existence I can find. Your previous tweets indicate you have knowledge of this, and I was hoping you could help me out. And since I'm using tweets, I might as well go to the source. I'm doing a story on the Zack Snyder Cut of Justice League, and I'm curious if such a thing fully exists and how far along it is. Is it all ready for release, or is it just a cut of the film missing things like music and CGI? Anything would be helpful, thank you. Now the next step is to look into all the articles that talk about the Zack Snyder Cut and see what sources they cite and see if they can be verified. First article is by Christian Bone, and on the website We Got This Covered, a website that has a shady rep for just posting clickbait. But let's put that aside and see their sources. This article says the Zack Snyder Cut of Justice League is 3.5 hours long. Well, it turns out their sole source for this article was this.
I mean, all that is that, you know, determined cut is done. You have a cut. I would like to. It's not like. That's not the best.
So essentially, this article was just talking about random length a movie may or may not be. They just pulled the time out of their ass and wrote a whole article about how a movie cut that may or may not exist may be this length. Or any other length for that matter. Maybe the length will vary because it'll be a Bandersnatch style movie where you can choose your own adventure.
I'm putting together a team. People with special abilities. You see, I believe enemies are coming.
Stop right there.
Is he awake? There's a police officer on the porch and he's not going away.
That same guy?
That theory has as much validity as this claim of 3.5 hour runtime. Even by the article's own sources, this is just a made-up guess and proves nothing. I dive into the internet, looking over article and article about the Zack Snyder Cut, and find a recurring theme. All these articles are based on two pieces of evidence. One being the tweets from Jay Olivia, who says the film is almost complete and also has an unverified account. The second being the Snyder video. So let's talk about this video, or let's actually talk about what this video doesn't have. A key piece of this video is missing. That is, what question Zack Snyder was asked. We are told he is asked about his cut of the Justice League, but we have no evidence of that. Here's what he could be answering. Did you finish your cut of the Justice League?
I mean, all that is that, you know, determined cut is done.
Is it true you have a complete draft for Man of Steel 2 written?
I mean, all that is that, you know, determined cut is done.
Will you reveal the workout regimen you put your actors through for these movies?
I mean, all that is that, you know, determined cut is done.
What is your favorite internet meme?
Never gonna say goodbye, never gonna tell a lie and hurt you.
We all know the last one was clearly fake. His actual favorite meme is,
Do you enjoy pain?
Pain don't hurt.
So what we have are two possibly questionable sources saying the Snyder Cut is real. I'm not saying Snyder is a questionable source. I'm saying the lack of context to what he's saying calls the whole thing into question. An article from Collider tells about a series of tweets from Screen Rant writer Stephen M. Colbert. Technically, his Twitter isn't verified either, but his Screen Rant profile links back to this Twitter. Here's what we learn. Zack Snyder and Chris Terrio had written a script for Justice League before Batman v Superman was released. They were going to shoot that, but with the bad reaction to Batman v Superman, they made last-minute changes. So the original version of Zack Snyder's Justice League does not exist. This means that a Zack Snyder cut for Justice League could never be his original vision, but the version that was rewritten later with Whedon's script doctoring. All this has led people debating the wrong thing. Everyone is debating whether or not the Snyder cut of Justice League exists. Given what we know, probably not, or at the very least it's incomplete with partial VFX, music, and sound design. The question we should be asking, can it exist? Obviously, we cannot get Snyder's original vision without essentially reshooting a movie, but can what Snyder and Whedon shot be edited together by Snyder or under his supervision to create something cohesive? If we take this video with Snyder on face value and J. Olivia's tweets about this, which have to be taken with a grain of salt, although I'm willing to say they probably are genuine, then we have something Snyder put together and probably just needs to be finished and released by Warner Brothers. Unfortunately, all the tweets and messages I sent trying to get a source to verify anything have gone ignored. This is frustrating because why would they talk about this cut and then, when asked to confirm their statements and verify what they said, choose to ignore it? This is actually a very bad sign. Snyder has released some art and visuals from his version of the movie, but these could simply be VFX renderings of storyboards to get an idea of the aesthetic Snyder wanted before he left the project. They prove nothing without more context. The lack of context is why the debate exists. We essentially have grains of evidence saying that exists, and fans have clutched onto this saying it must be true, and ignore the facts that even if it does exist, it could never be Snyder's original vision. Because of this, the community debates its existence, fighting amongst each other instead of doing the logical thing and allying and asking for the Snyder Cut to be finished and released. Because while it almost certainly doesn't exist in a completed form, it could exist. The major hurdle would be the VFX. However, if a huge community of fans grouped together and said we would watch it, WB might consider. Instead, what we have are fans fighting each other, and meanwhile, WB is doing a soft reboot of the DCEU with Aquaman and Shazam, and the Whedon cut of Justice League fits way more in line with their reboot than a Snyder cut would. Almost the entire online comic book fan community would be interested in how this cut would play out, whether it be good or bad. I would watch it, and I hate Batman v Superman. If Snyder is interested in making a cut of Justice League and finishing his work, I'd be all for it. But there is no way WB would be cool forking over the money when such a vocal group shoots down the very idea that it doesn't exist, makes everyone else less interested in any possibility of it existing, and WB less willing to do anything about it. The discourse needs to stop being the Zack Snyder Cut exists, and if you don't believe it, you're stupid, and start being let's bring the Snyder Cut to life. Debates are good, heck, my channel invites them, but there is a difference between a debate and name-calling and simply ignoring other people because they say something contrary to what you believe. Yelling at each other will get the Snyder Cut nowhere. Unifying and yelling at WB, as long as Snyder is willing, might get us somewhere. I have a last-minute update. Not long before I was finished with this video, I noticed this tweet from Stephen M. Colbert of Screen Rant. I contacted him the day before this video was released, and according to an article he wrote, they had begun color grading the Snyder Cut, so an at least somewhat final cut was complete. Some VFX was probably done, however it is unlikely Junkie XL recorded any of his score. His full article is linked in the description. This information actually lines up with J. Olivia's tweets and Zack Snyder's quote, so it means it's probably all true. So there probably is a cut that was finished by Zack Snyder. However, no score is recorded for it, and while VFX is probably started on it, it's almost certainly not completed and would require a huge financial burden on Warner Brothers to complete. Until then, this trailer is all we have for Justice League, the Zack Snyder Cut.
We've known each other for so long. Your heart's been aching, but you're too shy to say
it. They think order and chaos are somehow opposites and try to control what won't be.